Newtown Mount Kennedy in Wicklow, moved to Pats in 22, by May 23, senior debut at 15, and Wednesday just gone medical at Spurs is the
Yeah, I should say as well. I've had someone in Wicklow on to me complaining that apparently this is a big talking point in Wicklow and he grew up in Ashford, which is like a short spin from Newtown Mount Kennedy, and it's Newtown Mount Kennedy everywhere. But either way, everyone wants ownership over this guy now.
So Newtown Mount Kennedy in Wicklow.
And the Ashford crew will not be happy. I'm not familiar with Ashford, but wherever the Ashford people will be unhappy with this. But his football route certainly was with Newtown Juniors, which is there, and then Joseph's Boys / Bray, and then Pats, and now the World.
What exactly is the fee?
Yeah, so this is a thing. Like I made my inquiries the other day, and I think the fee was negotiated in sterling, but you see euros figures going around the place. So I'd heard it was around sort of a 1.5 million sterling, sort of upfront, guaranteed, rising to around 3.5. So that you do the figures, and that brings you to just under 1.8, 1.9, close to €2 million, and then. Similarly, when you get close to €4 million, the other side of it with the exchange rate, but 20% sell-on clause as well. And while I haven't sort of verified this myself, talk of a second sell-on clause, which is becoming a bit of a thing on transfers now, that you don't just get the first transfer, you might get a tranche of the second one. That 20% is very significant.
Pats get 20% of any future sell-on. The first one. So if he's bought for 10 million. In a couple of years' time, they get 20% of that.
Yeah.
And there may well be a second transfer clause.
Yeah, and there's all, without getting bogged down into it, the FIFA rules also, 5% of every transfer fee under FIFA rules is divided amongst development clubs as well. So, I mean, if Mason Melia ever went for, and Stephen Kenny there is talking about, tempering expectation and hype, which I think is perfectly fair. But if he did go for the type of money the players go for now, then 5%. Like it's going to be a very lucrative deal for Pats in the coming years.
Yeah, he is very easy on the eye. Moves beautifully with the ball. Has a bit of vision. Can take a goal. Strong for his age, but strong. So. This is, really exciting, and it's great to have him in the league from our perspective for the next year. I think he will put bums on seats for Pats. In terms of, though, getting to 1.5 million, which is obviously unprecedented for a League of Ireland player, I guess the why of that is interesting for people. I mean, a big reason here to emphasise is St. Pat's, via Gareth Kelleher, their owner, they have the financial muscle to hold out for a good deal, and also crucially to lock Melia down on a 3-year contract in November 23. So they have the money to say to him, November 23, here's a 3-year deal, as opposed to here's a 1-year deal or whatever might be the going rate at lesser financially well-off clubs. So explain that context. That's a big way towards explaining the 1.5 million. So the 1.5, you are what you negotiate. Seamus Coleman went for 60 grand. Mason Melia is not 1,000 times a better player than Seamus Coleman. So Pats have been able to negotiate here.
The crucial thing about compensation rules is, or like transfers of underage players, and this is the same in every league in the world, and you'll see it happening even in the Premier League now, is the length of a contract that a young player signs, their first professional contract at 16. You can't be a professional footballer until you're 16. The first contract that you sign at 16 is obviously a big one. And a lot of kids in Ireland now, because of the Brexit rules, how they've come round to coping with that, and their agents and advisors and families will just sign a 2-year professional deal at 16 that expires at 18, and then you'll sort of be, there's a freedom to go, and there's a compensation figure that needs to be thrashed out, and that can become a negotiation. Mason did a 3-year deal at that stage, which gave that extra layer of protection for Pats, and I'm interested to hear, I suppose, how they managed to convince them to do that. But I think also you can sense that that they obviously were able to sense that this is a special player, and that they're willing to probably to pay him a good contract. Like a big thing about, and I know we'll move on to the broader thing later, so I don't want to get too bogged down into it now, but like football transfers are very often dictated, the size of them are often dictated by how you're valued by the club that you're currently at. And you can't be looking for big money for a kid that's on 100 quid a week in expenses. And clearly, but what I will say about Mason as well, and we'll talk about the general picture later. You do also have a situation here where, like, sometimes you just see a player and you think, well, this player is a special talent, and competition drives price as well. That all of a sudden, multiple clubs wanted him. It's not just a case of sometimes a club will lock on one player, bring him over to train, and that's it. It's their little secret. Mason couldn't have been a secret because he was, for Ireland underage level, he was doing extremely well. Under 17 Euros the year before last, 2020. Like, I always remember at the time, it was like St. Patrick's Athletics' youngest ever goal scorer at 15 is up against Barcelona's youngest ever goal scorer at 15, Lamine Yamal, But Mason was a star of that Irish team. And then last summer, and as Stephen Kenny has mentioned it, like, he's playing at 16 in the, against international players. So, with special players, clubs will just go above and beyond, and, competition. So competition and contract led us to that price.
Yeah. So your average 16-year-old League of Ireland gets a 1 or 2 year deal. Suits club, suits player. St. Pat's, with a bit of financial muscle and it being very clear to them that Mason Melia was a talent and that suitors would be at their door when he turned 18. Yeah. They said, let's give him a good contract, good enough that he'll sign for 3 years, and therefore we protect ourselves when the inevitable happens and the Spurs of the world come to our door and say, we'll give you 300, 200, and they can say, no, we're in no rush here.
Yeah.
And that suited Melia, whose mum still drives him to training and he's getting good advice. We'll talk to his agent and uncle in a moment. That suits Pat's. So this kind of was win, 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 win. He obviously wasn't in a massive rush to get out the door at 18.
Well, yeah, but I have to say, and this is the thing, I think from the player's side, it was still a massive vote of confidence in him to do it, because I know you said there maybe the contracts 1 or 2 years suit the club and the player. They don't really suit the club. I think clubs would like to give, to their better 16-year-olds, they'd like to get 3-year deals to all of them, but they just can't get them to sign them. Like, Pats have lost players through that route. We'll do 2, but we're out the door when he turns 18. You can't bargain. So to get him to do the extra year, they had
to make it worth as well.
Yeah, and that's why, we'll get some insight on that, and but also as well, again, we know, our the whole nature of Irish football's relationship with England, with everywhere, we're going overseas. And listen, I'm not saying that this is wrong. You have to get out of here to follow your ambitions. So there's always a sort of a sense of desperation to get out of here. And if you don't go now, maybe you'll never get your chance again. That's often the mindset that informs deals. And if clubs play hardball, they're like, well, you're standing in their way. But obviously, I think you have probably a situation here where people realize, well, no, Mason's very good. Mason is going to get away. So let's go when it works for everyone, rather than just jumping out the door, jumping at the first bid. And as you say, having a billionaire owner, who's put a lot of money into the club, who doesn't need to take 200, 250 grand up front to keep the wolves from the door, as clubs have done so in the past. So there's a combination of things there which have definitely contributed to that fee, and I know we'll talk about it a bit later. It's where you can't just suddenly expect them to be loads of, all of a sudden you're reading about these things all the time. This is pretty unique, this is pretty unique. Hopefully there'll be more, but it's not guaranteed.
Well, to that end, happy to say Clive Clark joins us. I'm not really sure how to introduce you first, Clive, so we'll go with Mason Melia's uncle.
Yeah, we'll go with that one now, eh?
Agent as well. People will know Clive Clark, 200 appearances in English football, at Stoke City in particular, a Republic of Ireland international. And, well, I guess they will know, obviously, in 2007 you had the cardiac arrest and that led to your retirement. And as I understand it, about 4 weeks after you were having very serious problems of your own, Mason was born. That's the timeline here?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I'm one of 8, and Mason's mum is sort of the next one up from me. So she's my big sister, and she was heavily pregnant with Mason when I had my cardiac arrest. So 4 weeks later, Mason was born, and passed the baton on to him.
When did you set up for Full Circle Sports, your agency?
So it's a couple of years old, the Full Circle Sports, but I've been working in the sports industry since I retired. So for the last 15, 16 years I've been working within sport, helping boys football clubs and players along the way.
Good man. It would have been kind of awkward if you'd said to Pamela, "I can look after Mason," and she said, "Nah, we're gonna go a different direction."
Now, to be fair, like the thing with Mason is that I act as his advisor as much as anything, and so Pamela sort of obviously trusted me, knowing that I was in the industry in the past, and obviously had the knowledge of playing and making the same journey, to an English club and seeing the ups, downs, and swings and roundabouts of my life. Dealing with the brilliant side of going and playing, all the way through Stoke and becoming the club captain there to, playing internationally for Ireland and to obviously having to retire with an injury, even like cardiac arrest is the same rule applies. It changes your life, and so all them things put me in a great position just to advise Mason, and you know, as her little brother, we were very close, and we make decisions together. We all sit around table as you do, and then plan the way. I mean, the agency side, we've always that side is sort of it's to the back of the head. Really, it's more about trying to put Mason in the best position and try and help advise him. Ultimately, it's down to his talent, and so far, so good with that.
Yeah, I presume his talent was fairly obvious at a young age. So right the way through, you have decisions to make. Why St. Pat's?
To be fair, it's obviously when the changeover of the rules in Ireland in terms of doing the underage through the clubs instead of like being in the DDSL as like someone like myself would have came through, we won Kennedy Cups and stuff like that when I played. And then we went to England at 16. That was just the way. And obviously with Brexit and then with the Irish League changing, we decided that we had 1 year in a Bray Wanderers, and then we would look to expand from there and try and pick the academy that we felt would be best for Mason. And having sat down with a few of them, I just went to Pamela. I said, look, having met Jerry O'Brien and the people at St. Pat's, we just felt that was the right pathway for Mason at that moment in time, and that was the decision we made. And thankfully, it's worked out so pretty good so far.
We've just been chatting in your absence, and Dan, I'm sure, will have a follow-up question or two as well. But obviously the fee is eye-catching, and part of that is both Mason's ability, but also Pat's ability to negotiate. And key to Pat's is that they've an owner who has money. That means they can give Mason a 3-year deal. So it's not like he's out the door at 18 and you're straight into talking about compensation. There's that extra bit of security for the club. On your side, were you more than happy to go for that 3-year deal to have him at the club past his 18th birthday? Was that a pinch point when you were talking with Pats, or one that you were happy to go with?
Yeah, look, it's always a tricky one when you're negotiating, trying to lay out a pathway for 15-year-old kids, and it's something that I don't really do. Obviously, Mason's my nephew, so I've kind of done it more over the last few years. But I do think there's been a lot of bad advice over the years given to young Irish players, especially because players in England, yeah, they might be moving cities and towns. We're moving country, and yeah, we speak English, but it's a different culture as well. And I don't think enough people respect that. They just see the pound signs and trying to maximise the situation. And I think there's a lot of bad advice out there. I think a lot of parents get fooled by it. And how Mason's scenario started was we believed that Mason's ability would always attract interest to a certain level, and the agreement between every party was look at maximise the deal for everyone along the way, but no one would ever sort of stand in anyone's way. We'd all work together as a unit. That's Jer, Garrett at St. Pat's, Anthony there as well, and then Mason's parents, and myself, and my business team as well. So between us all, we got to work on Mason, and we kind of planned the route down, going to visit some of the best academies in the UK, Man City, Chelsea, and a few others. And but we always felt that obviously that pathway was probably a little bit more difficult to go down, maybe than a Spurs or a Celtic or Everton, Brighton, them ones that have all shown huge interest in Mason. So it has been carefully planned along the way, and as you said, Garrett's he's a good negotiator. I'll give him a lot of credit. we've spoken loads along the way, a few fallouts, and but along the way, most of us we're always on the same path. So we're just dead. Really, everyone's really pleased that the transfer fee being achieved has hopefully enhanced people thinking of the Irish League.
And again, I'm sure it's all good now. What are the fallouts over with Gareth? Like, what are the disagreements when they do arise?
Now it's just general discussions, isn't it? Like, sometimes people, whether it's clauses in contracts or,
Okay.
there's certain points, but maybe not so much a fallout, but more strong negotiations from both parties.
Yeah, because life, like from what you're saying, and I know, like you've been inundated with inquiries on this over the years. Like, was there ever anything tempting from Europe? Because was there ever any sense of God, just Mason for his development? He needs to go somewhere 16, 17 to a more, established full time environment. Like, was that ever tempting?
That was always tempting for a number of reasons. You've got to, sit down and listen to these people, and we did. But to be fair to Mason, he's not one who's there shouting from the rooftops about a lot of stuff. He's quite quiet, not shy. He'll give his opinion as and when he wants to, but he doesn't say a lot when it comes to certain things. But he's pretty adamant that that wasn't the pathway for him. That he didn't want to go down the European route. He was very happy at St. Pat's and really enjoying his time there. And he always had a belief and a want to go to the UK. And he was much more comfortable with that route than going into Europe. And we've just listened to Mason and helped him because ultimately he's the one who has to go there and live there and play and we're just here to advise him and to guide him. But it's been his decision, and that was the decision Mason made. So it made it really simple, where we had loads of interest from Europe. It was incredible since he's probably been 14. The amount of teams throughout Europe, all the big clubs have come knocking, and credit to him, he's not really been that interested. He's went and had a look through Man City at their stuff abroad, and decided that wasn't for him. And we haven't wasted people's times going around, to like the Inter Milans and Ajaxes and Paris Saint-Germain's and whoever. We haven't gone around to them clubs because why waste our time? And we've been very adamant with St. Pat's of the route that Mason wanted to go down.
When did you realise he's going to cross the million mark here? Like like you obviously have conversations and I appreciate there's a club element to that. Of course, it's not necessarily all coming through you, but like when did you realise now that he's gonna cross this boundary?
Um, Probably when he burst on the scene at St. Pat's. Let's be realistic about it. We always knew he would command a hefty fee. Some of the stuff he's done at the international level for Ireland has been fantastic. Um, I just think when he burst on the scene and showed his ability to deal with certain pressures, especially when you like playing against likes of Rovers and them big games, he seemed to thrive in them. And I just went, when me and Gareth sat down, we felt that we had a player and a talent that was wanted throughout Europe, let alone the UK, and we just felt that that was some of the things he'd done in them early stages. We just probably knew we had a player of a certain level that we could really go to town on it because it's all right saying this transfer breaks all the records, but you need the talent to do that. And we felt Mason had the ability to shine, and he did. And he's grasped everything along the way so far. Now his biggest steps are about to come, and it's about him kicking on as an individual again.
Yeah. There, I mean, you say, quietish personality, but knows his own mind. And that's tough at 15, 16. Barcelona might be saying, do you want to have a look at La Masia? Be thinking, yeah, I'll have a look. So, uh, and I think quite wise in a way for him to understand the importance of home and a support structure. Like, you're still such a kid, I mean, you must look back and think, my God, I went over to Stoke at 16. Like, this is, in a way, it's madness. Like, his mum still drives him to training. That we're talking about a kid here, and you can lose sight of that.
I know, I know. I heard Damien Duff make a few comments the other day about he had 2 years of Mason. Well, I think well, you can see it in two different ways. Yeah, Damien went on and was a fantastic footballer, but you look at the likes of Troy Parrott, he might have benefited having 2 years more in Ireland. as an individual, forget about football, that growing up and that maturity. Um, like they learn how to drive, they learn how to cook, they just finished school. Girls are bursting on the scene. Everything's happening at that period, and some people just are able to push that all to one side and really kick on, and then other lads get distracted, and sometimes, that's an individual thing. That's down to each individual. And I just think Mason will really benefit spending that time at home and developing in a first team environment at St. Pat's.
Yeah, if people missed the Duff comments, look, he was effusive about Mason, beast of a player physically, even for his age. And he was talking about how he's going to be supporting him as a League of Ireland fan, as an Irish fan. He said, if you call a spade, though, he is playing catch up. He's missed 2-3 years at an elite club. He'll be going to Spurs at 18. I was there. I was at Blackburn at 16. Now, he did also say, look, I do accept he's had first team football. I was curious, you've been there, you've a feel for the game. How would you, I was curious to ask you how you would weight the footballing experience at Pats, that first team football, versus training away in an elite academy at Spurs. Like in terms of home life, support, mum, dad, people around, no contest. You'd much rather him be at home. But just as a footballing experience and in terms of development, first team football Pats versus elite academy Spurs, what do you think is the better route in pure footballing terms?
Well, one, we don't have that choice anymore,
sure.
So that's taken away from us straight away.
But in an ideal world, Duff's point to he will be a bit behind, kind of thing.
Well, will he? That's again individual talking. Each individual has a different pathway. No two pathways are the same. You look at Tottenham just using Robbie Keane, one of our greatest players. Robbie burst on the scene at Wolves and went to Tottenham, done fantastic well. Harry Kane, about 6 loan moves, went on and became a legend at Tottenham also. So there's different routes for everyone. I look a little bit closer to home, and Stoke City player who came through the ranks at Man City, had all the elite training, the best of everything. His father was a superstar player as well, Anderson, who's just signed for Cork City. And now Stoke know the importance of getting first team football into these lads. They play academy football. I think in academy football in the UK right now, there's a lot of bad habits being picked up. They're not playing to win. So Mason straight away is coming over into that group of 18-year-olds who probably might be a little bit more rounded or had more experience with these top class players. But they won't have 50 to 100 games under the belt like Mason will. So it's a long-winded argument, isn't it? There's no right way.
It's hard to know.
It's down to Mason to make the most of his career, and when he goes over to Tottenham next year, he's got to hit the ground running and show everyone what a player he is.
So you have a lot of clubs coming at you. I presume you are asking Spurs, well, where do you envisage him pitching up? Is he training with the 18s? Is he getting first team exposure in training? 20s, reserve team? Where is he going to pitch up? So, on his first day at Spurs or first week at Spurs, will he train with the first team, or how do you have those conversations?
Oh, definitely. Like they're the most important conversations, really. And it's very hard. None of us have a crystal ball to know where anyone is in a year's time. But the whole idea of them wanting to pay such a fee for Mason is that he comes over and gets around the first team straight away. Now, that doesn't mean he'll be playing week in, week out, or even on the bench. But that's the idea, is that he will come over and be in around the first team environment, and then they'll assess him from there. And that's, like, let's be honest, that's the honest answer. Everyone, you can always say, "Oh, he's going to start every week." No transfer works that way. So the idea from Tottenham is that he will come over, get in around the first team. They'll have a really good look at him, and then gauge it from there.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, that's great. That's a lot better than, no, we'll stick him in the 18s and see how he goes. That would have been less appetizing.
He won't be on anywhere near the 18s.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, Spurs, even in recent weeks, like, we have seen some of the younger players integrated. Like, did that help? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, Clive, like, why Spurs? Because you've mentioned a lot of the clubs that it's out there, and you've sort of dropped a couple of them in. Like, what did they offer that others maybe didn't offer?
Two things. I took Mason over to train at Tottenham when he was at Bray Wanderers. So it was his first sort of exposure to that Premier League setup. And it's probably stayed with him. that first impressions and everything. Um, but the reason I choose we went to Tottenham again was that Mason one enjoyed it there. Two, we see the pathway there, and the third one is that the new sports director and the ownership at Tottenham, yeah, they're probably getting it in the neck right now this morning after getting hammered by Liverpool last night. But they are trying to put the younger players in, and that was massive. And they've got more players under 20 playing who are signed to them playing football at a high level than any other club in Europe right now, which people probably haven't looked at. They just signed a Korean boy and put him straight on loan at QPR in the January transfer window. They signed the top talent out of Sweden who came on last night. They got one of the best young talents in England, Mikey Moore. So, they're actually proof is in the pudding there right now. We're not talking about the last 40 years, as you would talk about some of the clubs talking. Right now, they're very current. They've got a pathway for these younger players. And hopefully that is going to persist over the next couple of years. Even tell the sort of big money signing,
Yeah.
loan signing from Bayern Munich. He's 19 years of age, so they're showing a clear pathway to what they're trying to do, and they've identified Mason as one of them players that they think can go on and play in their first team at an early age. So all them things were discussed, and that's why Mason chose to go to Tottenham over anyone else.
It's kind of an unfair question to ask you. It's almost asked out of wanting to be fair to him. Can he play Premier League in the next couple of years? Is that realistic? I mean, you mentioned the likes of Tell coming over, 19-year-old, 50 games at Bayern, phenomenal talent. Like he's in at the top 0.00001%. So like he could have a great career. You had a great career, didn't necessarily, it's not top of the Premier League, but it's a great football career. What's a fair, realistic expectation of what Mason can do?
That's the beauty of age, isn't it? He's so young. None of us have a crystal ball. Why not? Why put boundaries? Why put limitations? I think we're very good in Ireland at trying to keep people grounded, and why not go be a superstar somewhere? He's at the similar age. People are saying like Evan Ferguson, whatever. Evan went in and burst on the scene, and unfortunately got injured.
Yeah.
People are trying to say, oh, he's out of form. He had a couple of bad injuries, and feel sorry for the lad, but he's a super talent. And why can't Mason go and follow him? Why can't he go and do that? And if not, you can go down the Troy Parrott route. There's you go in at a certain level, and sometimes whether it's you don't get on with the management there, or there's some other player in your way. Like none of us really know the pathway, but I think he's got a serious chance of having a very, very good career, because there's not a huge amount of centre forwards out there who can do what Mason can do. You look at some of his hold up play, and obviously his size. He's going to be 6'3". He's a powerful young man already, and he's only going to develop more. So why not? Why not aim for the stars? And if he ends up having a career like his uncle, then he's still done okay.
I like that.
He'll be disgusted if he's a career like his uncle.
I think he will actually.
Clive,
It's funny. On the other day at Tottenham, we were there, and Teddy Sheringham was in watching training, and I bring him down to meet Teddy, who I know played with him at West Ham, and he comes out, "Hey, Clarky," and I think it was nice for him to see that his uncle once kicked the ball.
Yeah.
I think these young lads forget that we once played, but it's no, it's great. He's got an inner belief, Mason, and he needs to keep developing that and keep him grounded and kicking on, and he's got to improve this season. He's got to be the best version of himself with St. Pat's and with Stephen Kenny there, and some good pros around him like Joe Redmond. I think he's in really good hands.
just Clive, one last thing maybe around the financial side of it. And it's something I've probably spoken to people about as well, like in the last couple of weeks, and about it. Like, obviously, as a representative, like you have to go and get the best deal for your client as well, your nephew, your client. The fact that Mason goes in and he's commanded a decent fee, like, is that very different to what maybe the terms could be? I know you're not going to tell us specifics, but what the terms could be for someone who goes over quite cheaply? Because it feels like Spurs have invested in him now, but also that means Mason can go in at a certain level relative to, I think if it's, you go back in recent time, if it's a 50 grand player in terms of a transfer fee, I'm not sure that player has been looked after massively well either. Like, does that give Mason a really good start in life from your perspective as a representative as well?
Oh, 100%. It doesn't matter if it's football or life or business, whatever. It's supply and demand. And when you're in more demand, you command a bigger fee, and that's all the way through the contract. So yeah, you see, he'll do all right over. Obviously, the terms of the deal will be, are private and remain private. But look, he's going into a good club who have a certain pay structure, so he's going to do all right out of it. But as like anything, as you are as a younger player, they dangle the carrot there to hope you go and improve and show your worth. So that's in anyone's contract, whether you're going as a 50 grand player or well, it should be in anyone's contract,
Yeah.
or you're going in as the most expensive teenager. It's a great accolade for him to have. I just hope it doesn't become a burden for him. He shouldn't do. But
Yeah.
and I hope the boys within the League of Ireland and press and everyone support him and realise that he is 17 years of age, and he isn't the finished article. He's got an unbelievable chance. He's a great athlete. He's got loads going for him. But I just hope the respect stays there, and people don't try and beat him up, and
Yeah.
and in the media as much as on the field, because that we have a great past history of trying to tear down people. I don't mean the Irish media, I just mean in general. And we got to support these young lads and hope that the next he inspires the next generation of League of Ireland players, because we're going to benefit watching them. We want
Yeah.
to see the best young talent come through and develop into internationals. And how brilliant would it be in 5 years, 6 years time to have a rake of lads who played League of Ireland football wearing the green jersey for a national team at a European Championship or World Cup. And that's what I'd love to see. Taking the finances away, it'd be a great honour to be a part of it. Watching them in the League of Ireland, to then go watch them probably in the Premier League, and then watch them play for our Irish national team at a major event. That's what I hope. That's my dream for Mason more than anything. You got to, when you hang up your jersey as a footballer, I done it a lot earlier than anyone else, 27 years of age. And the one thing I'm proud is, representing my country at every level. I went through the ranks at the club would choose to go to Stoke and became club captain. That's more important than anything I put in the bank.
Yeah. I thought for a second there Dan was leading up to ask you what's your cut for a second there. So I'm relieved he didn't.
It's not changing my life. It's I'll be still living my life up in Staffordshire with my family and kids. It'll help Mason, but he's on the pathway now, and then if he can go to the next level, then he can buy us all a drink.
Good. 5-year deal? Is that if they had said to you, Clive, what kind of length deal would you want? Is that about right for you? That sounds good, or did you want more or less?
Yeah, look, it's probably good for both parties.
Okay.
They have the security of a talent on their books, not run down his contract straight away like some people try and do. Mason has that security to go over there and buy an apartment, whatever he chooses to do, get on the ladder as such. So yeah, I just think that security for each. I think that's the fair number of years for Mason to go on and do the best for himself, but also gives him time to develop, and it gives Spurs that security there as well.
Yeah. I moved out at 23. You obviously moved out, went into digs at 16. So like he's a 17 going on 18-year-old. Maybe he gets an apartment. Like, can he boil an egg? Is someone going to help him out? You know what I mean? Like, these are the conversations you guys are probably having.
His mum's going to teach him
Okay.
a few tricks over the next year. He's got plenty of time to learn these things, but his mum will be back and forth.
Yeah.
Pam will be, obviously she'll miss him probably more than anyone else, because she's got to take him to St. Pat's and back at the minute. He's learned to drive at the minute. He hopefully be in. He's got his own car already, but he's obviously having to wait for his test. So hopefully in the coming months he can drive himself, and that's another bit of his independence. But yeah, he's got to learn all these things like we all did.
Yeah. One last one from me, Dan, by all means, if there's anything else. It just strikes me listening to you. You were saying maybe if the family link hadn't been there, you wouldn't necessarily have been involved in a deal of this kind. But given the way Brexit has changed things, that elite Irish talent that would have went over at 14, 15, 16 is now possibly going to break through League of Ireland first team football, and then there are more serious financial conversations to be had with clubs who might come sniffing around for the best of the best. Probably not a gap in the market, but there'll be a requirement for good advice for these young men. I don't know if Irish football is set up to offer it to them. It doesn't strike me there are agents, all over the place who are on top of these kind of deals. That's a new aspect for us.
Yeah, like I think the thing for me with this deal, which I'm hoping happens, I've got really frustrated with Ireland over the years in terms of the League of Ireland, the FAI and the government. They don't seem to work together.
Right.
You look at this new TV deal with Virgin. It's another step in the right direction. Like RTE have been, in my eyes, not non-supportive of the League of Ireland. Um, I just hope that this deal changes everyone's mindset and that the clubs end up having better facilities, because that's a major thing. The facilities aren't good enough, from training facilities to the stadiums. It is in some cases, like, St. Pat's are out training at the Sports Ireland, which is a great facility. Tala is probably the best stadium in the league, but that should be standard all the way through the leagues. And the FEI and the government and the clubs all need to get together, bang the heads together, put all the egos to one side, and think of the younger generation how many top talented players are we losing to Gaelic football and rugby right now. They should be coming through and playing the sport of their choice, not what has the best facility. And then all the deals will get done along the way with good advice. It'll help enhance the everything. Will enhance everything if we start looking at deals like this as the norm, not just the one off.
Yeah. Well, that Dan and I are about to chat about that now. Not every club would have Gareth Kelleher and be able to hold out for a good deal, and there has been a tradition of players going for below market value. That's something, might be a bit of short-term pain, the league, but it'll have to get to that point where it is holding out for the right figure.
100%. It's you look at the MLS is a great. I know it's a big country, America, but like, soccer, as they call it over there, is always been the fifth sport, whatever. But they work together, and they now are able to command really good fees. And I think that's what the Irish clubs need to do. They need to say, don't stand in lads' ways. You know what I mean? Respect where certain players are at the what level they're at and what fee they may command. But try and maximise the fee, and try and maybe get some of it to go back into grassroots. I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. But the thing for me is that the facilities aren't good enough throughout Ireland, and they need to get better. And that's one of the reasons players are wanting to get to the UK and other countries is to go into places where they have better football pitches, where they have better facilities, and that shouldn't be the case in this day and age in such a wealthy country like Ireland.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. We know where Mason got that first touch from. His mum.
Must be his brother.
Yeah. So well done. Listen, I'm sure the whole family are just so excited. What an amazing thing for everyone, and best of luck to him. Best of luck to you. Great to see you flying, and all is good.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
All right. Bye. Here we are, Clive Clark, talking to us about the nephew.
Yeah. I should say the reason I was asking that question, not to ask what Clive's cut was, but I think that's something that isn't spoken about enough. And it's something that I would
as in the wages that Mason is going to get.
Not so much the wages, but also how that can affect how they're going to get on at the club. Like if you look at it, right, a sporting director at a club, the people who recruit talent, like their reputation is staked on how they spend their money. And this is something that's been said to me repeatedly by people who know their stuff within football here, that if you have two kids in an academy and one has gone for 2 million from Sweden and one has come for 20 grand from Ireland, you're sure as hell going to want the 2 million one to work. And like, there's so many aspects to how how the low valuation of Irish players like affects things, and it means that they'll go over on probably bad contracts or relative to others, and it just means that they're starting from a position of, you're happy to be there, you should be happy to be there. Like, I made this point in a piece the other day, like, we're doing like special shows around Mason Melia, and like, and rightly so, because it's such a groundbreaking event. But this week there's a club in Bosnia have sold a player to France for €2 million. Now, Bosnia is a lower ranked league than the League of Ireland. Like, Shamrock Rovers took apart Borac, their champions, a couple of months ago. Yeah, it's it's within the sort of culture of football that you go to that part of the world and you pay. But in Ireland, you go there and you guilt trip them into coming to you. And look, there's proximity. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's not quite, you can preach about it, but like there's obviously layers to that. But I think that's an important thing as well. That sometimes like it is better. Like, you'll have this thing of, and agents and players will like just get them out, release clause as cheaply as possible. But if someone goes in somewhere as a 50 grand player, well then, they're viewed as a cheap investment, and that can have a domino effect as to how they're perceived within the club. And that's why I think with this, I just like this. It's not about Mason's security, which obviously is going to be there for him, which is terrific. It's just more, it means that they've invested in him as well, so they have to treat him. They're people stake their reputations on their signings, and that's going to be a good thing for him.
Yeah. This just to finish, issue of how much Irish clubs are getting from English clubs is now been discussed for several years. Like Daniel Lambert at Bowes. This was around the time Dawson Devoy went to MK Dons and Promise Omachair, who was 21, went to Fleetwood. They had get-out clauses in their contracts, and he was talking about the situation, and he said that we need to come together as a league. All clubs need to come together and have some kind of collective agreement that establishes a base level on transfer fees. And he said clubs are getting better add-ons, but we actually need to just improve the upfront money. Essential for academy investment, essential for the industry, etc. There was an Irish Times piece a couple of years ago where a club director, speaking on the basis of anonymity, said, "We just have to dig in and be smarter when it comes to negotiating transfer fees. Tell the agents to go fuck themselves." It was a sentiment that was out there. So, are you optimistic that Irish clubs come together, or is it still? This feels like a bit of an outlier.
See, I think like Dawson Devoy and Promise and those players there, and some of those clauses, you're speaking about 20-year-olds there. I think just like where the value, for one, where the fees are going to be, if they're ever going to be big, is going to be in that 16, 17, 18-year-old market, where people think that they are getting the next Evan Ferguson, the next whoever it might be. And the clubs here, like, they also have to, I have to say as well, they also have to be prepared to invest in youth in a certain way as well, that they have to be prepared to give a 16-year-old who may not turn out to be a star, but they have to be prepared to give them a proper deal, to sort of not have a situation as, again, where, and we've seen this, where a player is on absolutely rubbish money, right? Basic expenses, and then there's a bit of interest from England, like, oh, straight away, let's put them on a different contract and try and get a few quid out of them. You can't do that either, and yeah, the Clive talks about the facilities thing at the end. Like, there's a couple of points I feel like I should make about Mason as well too. Like, and the reason why a lot of people are seizing upon this is a big part of the FAI and the pitch to government at the moment is about academies, is that you can get a return on the investment, that if you set these up, these will eventually start to pay for themselves over time. Didn't really have a reference point for that. Now there is a reference point, like a player who has, generated a seven-figure sum. But like, Mason had to leave school after his junior cert to train full time at a certain level in Ireland. Like, the only way that Mason could, you talk about, say, that argument of 16 to 18 and how, like Damien Duff's point as to how far you're behind, he would have been further behind if he hadn't made that call. Like, he had to, and Sam Curtis was the same. There's a couple of there's a couple of kids around at certain clubs at the moment who have quit school after the junior cert, like players did quit school after the junior cert to go to England. They're now doing it in Ireland because they have to go in and train with first teams, because the only place you can train every day like professionals with the first team squad. And as people listening to this will know, not every 16-year-old is going to be ready for that. Not every, like, you need to be a freak really in a way to be able at 16 to go in and play first team football. And Stephen Kenny spoke well about this at the launch during the week, saying, and realistically saying, like, manager, it's getting more competitive at the top end of the league. You're not necessarily going to be throwing a 16-year-old in unless he's really, really good. So it should focus the minds around that point. Like,
so what you're saying is we need a really kind of top-notch academy system whereby you can train full-time and continue your education.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not boom or bust.
No, and the problem is that you will see, like, some kids will leave at 16 now because they can't. They're not going to be around the first team. They won't want to go. But, like, again, they're leaving on the cheap and they're heading into an uncertain world. But so there is layers to this. But I do think, like, if he does well, or even if he doesn't, like, it does certainly show to other clubs, yeah, you can bargain harder. But I think as well, from their side, there has to be a sense of, okay, we have to create better conditions for those players as well, so you have a stronger negotiation pitch when clubs come calling. So it's a very interesting development. It's not a straightforward line from here that it just leads to this happening all the time. But I would hope, and I will say, like, Irish football is it was massively a place where there's a lot of envy, there's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of there's always people feuding with each other. But like when this deal went through the other day, someone from another club, like a rival club, would have sent me a message and said, "This is brilliant. This is the big one. We all need it to go through." So, hopefully, that's how it's remembered. This is sort of remembered in that respect as maybe a watershed moment.
Dan, thank you.
Thank you.